Welcome to Third Tuesday Conversation, the ELCA Youth Ministry Network's monthly podcast. Our goal is to engage in conversations affirming that youth ministry looks a million different ways, in a million different places, and with a million different experiences. Hello, everyone. My name is Veronica Brito, and I'm coming to you live from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And who else do we have here today?
Hey everyone, it's Jessica Noonan coming to you from Houston, Texas.
And this is Alex LaChapelle coming to you from Marquette, Michigan in the Upper Peninsula. We are sitting here in the month of July, and it's a time when the church kind of calms down, but the services are coming and going and things like that. And I think this is as good a time as any to talk about the children's message, amongst other things in children's ministry, because I think some churches are pretty split on it. I'm wondering if I can get a quick read from you, Jessica and Veronica. Children's messages, is this something that you grew up with or something that your churches do consistently, or nope, we do something different?
Well, it's definitely not something I grew up with, and I had never experienced one until I was visiting another Lutheran church, maybe in the Midwest or something. And so it just wasn't a part of the fabric of our urban Lutheran churches in Philly.
Okay.
So I had never experienced one. Now we've had different students that come from the seminary to do their on-site work, and that seminary student, she did do a children's sermon, and people were kind of like, "What's this?" She was like, "All the children gathered," and the children were like, "What? Are we getting baptized again? What's happening?" The parents were like, "Are we supposed to come up too?" It was kind of chaotic, but she got people in the habit of it happening.
Okay.
But then as soon as she left, we were like, "Okay, well,
We tried.
see you today."
Yeah. Goodbye. Bye,
Because
Felicia. What
it's
about you, Jess?
something I've seen. So, but I do know what it is, and that's my experience with it.
Excellent.
Well, I didn't grow up going to church, so but when I started doing youth ministry, I did a number of children's sermons in my day and seen a number of them, some done better than others. And so I have mixed feelings about children's sermons in that most of the time they're not written for the children. They're very abstract. And that's where I see the downfall a lot of time in congregations, right? You're trying to teach the 5 and 7-year-old an abstract concept instead of like, let's just talk about this story. What did you hear happening? What's God doing in this story, right? Like,
Yeah.
something they can grab onto. So I have mixed feelings about it,
Okay.
and
Excellent.
all the ways that we can support children, youth, and family ministry and caregivers in passing on faith, I love. So I'm hoping that I learned something that is effective
Yeah.
from
Well,
from John. I'm very interested really to learning about.
well, you blew the hat off right there. Yeah, we've got
Awesome.
John Stevens with us,
That's right.
and he's
Amazing.
been an ELCA pastor for 26 years. John's been a magician for more than 35 years. I'm going to be honest, John, I'm more excited about the magician part than the pastor part. You're coming to us from the great and wonderful and green state of Oregon, where you've done a lot of your ordination, and then you're also from Idaho, which is a place that I've been. So I've got a lot of love for the Northwest. Besides being a spouse and a father, you're a poet. You're going to give us maybe a haiku prayer at the end of this little gig that we're doing together. And yeah, you have blessed beans. You are the owner of Dollar Store Kids Sermons. And so we brought you because we think you're one of the most interesting people that comes through the extravaganza sometimes with a bunch of smorgasbord of talent, but especially today, I'm really excited to pick your brain for exactly what Jessica said, which is, I've seen a lot of kids' sermons. I've only seen a few good ones. So we're hoping that John Stevens will set us right, show us the way, and we're going to follow you on your little brick road and be the wizard that we deserve, not the wizard that we get.
I know.
How you doing, John?
Oh, I'm doing great. Thanks for asking me to be here. I'm excited about it. Yeah.
Tell us, is there anything about like your kind of ministry, especially around like these children's sermons, dollar store children's sermons, that like where did you kind of start your journey in like, okay, obviously ordained pastor, so you have a lot of jobs under that title, but you seemingly have made a point to say the children's sermon is something that should be thought about, processed, and let me see if I can help others on that journey as well.
Yeah. So, I mean, with the question you asked earlier about like what was your experience or growing up, and I mean, it's growing up. I've always known there's a children's sermon, and there's at some point in the worship where, specifically children are welcomed and have a place. And for all that I can remember, it's always been the pastor that's done it. Didn't have to. I mean, I know it doesn't have to be, but my experience has been that. And and for the most part, I look back and I think about, what do I remember about the children's sermon? And mostly I remember that I was welcomed, that I was there, and that for that moment I felt like I belonged. Now that, so I've done a couple of classes and, at the extravaganza and at our local synod level about children's sermon. And we do get into that question about, well, shouldn't the entire service be welcoming to kids? Should there be and I'm all for that. I also know that that in my experience that's incredibly difficult to do well, just like the children's sermons can be difficult to do well. But for me, the ultimate reason for the children's sermons is so that they know that they are welcomed, they belong, and they are loved. And so all of my children's sermons are grace based. They're not morality based. Not you should do this. It's grace based, and there's no scripts. But we might dive into that. But no scripts. I always think of the Incredibles. No capes, no capes. And so I think about that. It's like no scripts. Because I mean, they just don't. I mean. I come with with the dollar store children's service. I start with the springboard, and that's really you got a springboard. I know the direction we want to go, and then we'll get there. Sometimes, like in my congregation, we have Maddox who always or most of the time has an interesting story to tell, and so sometimes that's trying to steer that. And I've even had to say sometimes like Maddox, I'd love to hear you and tell me after church when we're done. Find me there and tell me the story, because it deserves to be listened to. And but yeah.
Yep. Yeah, no, and I think I didn't even say my experience, but my experience was definitely it was always there. It's always been there. I went to my grandma's church. I went to my church, and especially in high school, I traveled to a lot of different churches with a brass choir and our singing groups, things like that. So I got to see about 15 different LCMS, Lutheran Church Missouri Synod churches a year and experience who did it, who didn't, who had children's church and children just left during the service and things like that. And I kind of remember thinking, yeah, it's my time. And I think I'm also the unique one that I liked going to church. I always found it a little interesting. It wasn't like super boring. I kind of always had a nugget that I got out of it. And so I liked that there was a my time spot. But I also remember then I got to a spot where I went, it's not my time because I'm not a kid anymore. I'm 11 and I know things and I'm the adult in the room. So I don't go up there with the children. And so I think part of it too is there kind of how do you talk to your church about what is the children's message and who's it for, even a little bit around like aging, and should you bring up a high schooler? If a high schooler wants to come up, when you have people with differing, abilities, things like that, do you say like the children's message, if a 75-year-old, woman with, dementia decides that it's time for her to come up, like, do you say like, whoa, whoa, whoa? Or do you say like, hey, everyone's welcome. Like, we're going to really just use this. How do you kind of answer that call of it's not I'm not a kid anymore and things like that? Or should I bring a baby up and just plop them there and like things like that?
Man, there is like a lot of stuff contained in that question.
That's what I do. That's what I do. I just want to give you this thing. I'm like, I'm just let you cook, let you.
Yeah. The
Run on one
ingredients are there.
question.
Yeah.
Shush
Chapter
up.
1 of the question.
No, so one of
Chapter 2.
the things I love in that, when you said, if Martha, who and I forget the name, but if Martha, the 74-year-old that's got Alzheimer's, or and is trying to figure out, and they come up. I mean, if my view of the table of communion is, and I say this a number of times, actually, I had someone tell me it last Sunday, that if someone leaves church not knowing that they belong at the table, then they weren't. Then I mean, they were not paying attention, because I'm like, I say it like I know I don't say it too much. I was going to say I feel like sometimes I say it too much, but it's that same way with the children's sermon, is that if we have a Sunday, because I mean, like every other congregation, we've got sports that are pulling people, and all of those. I mean, all kinds of things. And so if I have a Sunday where I don't have any kids, I still do the children's sermon. I still have the children's sermon. And
Nice.
I stress that we're all kids of God. So in that, but part of that, so um yeah, so we still do that. And my squirrels went, yeah, so my squirrels took my thought in one direction, but so, where was I going with that? Everyone's, yeah, so it's like it the age of kids, um it so my congregation, this is a kind of a squirrel step off. So when I got to Zion, I've been there for 14 years. When I got there, they had the practice of, at the beginning of the service, the kids left for Sunday school, and they didn't come back until the end of church. And so I knew that I wasn't going to change that entire practice, or that entire ethos. But what it was is that we have confession and forgiveness. We move into Sermon on the Steps. It's, I always call it the little sermon, or the first sermon, because I do tie them together. But we have the Sermon on the Steps, and then they go off to Sunday school, but they come back during the sharing of the peace, because I said, if I mean, I knew I wasn't gonna stop that, because they had been doing that for so long. But I'm like, but the kids will be back for communion. They will come back in the sharing of the peace. They will experience that and move into communion and know that. So part of that is like knowing that if we have kids with a bunch of different needs, we also have adults that have a bunch of different needs, and I have adults that have said, I have a hard enough time paying attention when it's just me. When I've got, and I'll use Maddox because he is my Spitfire and a whirlwind. His mom, Carmen, will be like, I honestly, Pastor, I'm trying. And, you know, we, for Lutherans, we have a lot of judgment that can go through our congregations, and that sense of like, I'm trying to do this, and I'm trying, and it's like, if you get one thing out of this church, if you don't get anything out of the sermon, but you come to the table and you're fed, God bless you. I mean, so the sense that, I don't know, I, we could spend an entire episode probably on how we're grace based yet dipped in judgment. So yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah.
And especially when our kids are little and you're in worship and you have, the lady in front of you. This was when my oldest was little, turned around and gave us a dirty look. And then 2 years later had a baby.
Ooh,
And it was a whole other perspective when,
yeah.
coming to worship and such. And I really appreciate the way you understand the purpose of a children's sermon in your context, right? That they know that they're welcome, that they're loved, and they belong. And I think, when we know why we do things, right, that informs the other pieces. And I maybe too often we don't know the why of doing a children's sermon, right? Because that's what we do. You're supposed
Yeah.
to do that. And um in right, the kids get lost in
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
instead of, how am I creating space for them as part of this community?
Yeah.
Um, which I mean, one of my peeves for years has been, right, worship is planned for the adults and adults who can read, right? I mean, so no one is thinking about, right, um, the under 18 crowd in the way worship is planned for the most part. And it's such a missed opportunity,
Yeah.
I think, because I know from my own experience of planning worship where it's with all ages in mind. Um, the adults might kick and scream at the beginning, but then after they're exposed to doing things in a different way or, experimenting with stuff, they start to love it and they're like, "Why well, can we do that? Can we get part of that?" Like they see, because people learn in different ways. And so, right, being able to create those spaces where they know they belong. I love that.
Yeah, I think some of the children's sermons that have the best response, I don't know if that's the right phrase,
Mhm.
but it's when the entire congregation takes part in it, and that's like
Yeah.
so in the our Pentecost this last Sunday, not last Sunday, but last time when we did Pentecost, we did the I had the congregation do the wave, and but we started off just with the kids. We did the
Yeah.
wave, and there were like 3 of us, and we're like, "Woo, wasn't that fun?" And they're like, "No." And they're like, "Okay, well, what if we do us and then the first 2 pews? We'll do that." Ooh. Well, that was pretty lame, I mean, and then the whole sense about getting everybody involved and everybody part of it, and how ultimately the Pentecost story tells us this wave just comes over all of us, and
Mhm.
and then we did the challenging. We did it reverse, starting in the back and working up front, and it was like how we actually had to watch for our neighbors and pay attention, and it was just and everybody got involved, and they are good sports. And
I love it. And they probably were talking about that all the way home and the next week and telling their friends and that's a
yep,
crazy thing we did. But then I bet they were able to tell that story too,
yeah,
right?
yep, yep,
Mhm.
yeah, and then and always, like always, most often I'll then connect it in the larger sermon. So like we heard earlier at the beginning of worship. Um,
Mm.
so
I love to that's my other peeve when they don't connect.
oh yeah,
I've been at churches where it's like the children's sermon was like a completely different Bible story. And yet the gospel text that Sunday was like perfect to talk
yeah,
about and, like ask questions and wonder about
yeah.
together. And I was just like, oh, what a missed opportunity.
Yeah. You said a word right there that is just key for me, isn't it? It's wonder. And so in that instilling wonder is probably one of the reasons I really like magic, and I've been
Mm,
doing magic forever. That
mm.
that sense of wonder and astonishment, but it ties back when, and this is kind of I don't know, like my tip for the podcast is if you're looking at a text and you have no idea where you're going to go, use the Godly Play wonder question. I
Oh,
wonder what
yeah.
they felt like. I wonder what went through their minds, and just ask that question about wondering. And then it's like, I wonder if you were there, how would you have felt? And talk about that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it is the get out of jail free card. It's like, I mean, so, yeah, like if you show up and the person that you have planned to do the children's sermon is sick, and all of a sudden you're like, you can do it. You could, I mean, you could look up a website maybe and find an idea, like dollar store children's sermons, or you could do the wonder question about, I wonder, um, yeah, I wonder what they were. oh, Yeah, have you ever been afraid? Yeah. Or my favorite is the instead of that, it's like, let me tell you about a time I was afraid. Um, so one of the things in children's magic when I do perform for kids is we talk about that the when you do an effect or a magic trick where it puts the kids in power and the magician or the adult doesn't see something, like I'll be doing something and something happens where I don't see it and the kids go, but wait a minute, and they point it out and then you notice it, all of a sudden the power structure flips on its head. And so in that, when you can be in this children's when you can be in that children's sermon and asking some of those questions and you glean something from the kids and you highlight that and you're like, I have never thought of it that way. And all of a sudden the kids going, wait a minute, my voice matters. And that's,
And it's hard, like when you ask questions, because sometimes they might go somewhere else.
Yep.
Sometimes you go, the answer is Jesus. Right. And I'm just going to ask it. And they're going to say Jesus. And all of a sudden they go, the boat. And you're like, yeah, the boat is important. The boat is important. But
my grandpa has a boat.
Yeah. And all of a sudden you're like, oh.
On a boat one time and I got
kids, Alex.
and
I work with enough adults.
Yeah.
And they do that
on
too.
The boat.
So the key to that is to ask the open-ended questions. The key where you're not looking for one answer. I wonder questions is a broad, or what are you afraid of? And so it's like this. So there's not a 1-point answer that you're looking for, because as you mentioned, Jessica, you've seen some bad children's sermons, and I've seen some bad. I've given some bad. I've given
I'm sure
bad,
I have
terrible
too.
sermons. But then I'll hear stories of. I should probably just start a list and put on the Dollar Store Children's, the world's worst. I don't want to shame anybody, but and not even just like I have heard some like children's sermons that would send you to counseling. It was like where, this is a squirrel, and I could go all the way down here. So it's a good conversation for off. You'll edit that, but anyway, I've heard of some ones that I go
after hours.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, I cannot believe someone thought that was a good idea. Yeah.
Let's talk about Rahab. No.
What is a prostitute?
Yeah.
Sorry, let me make it a wonder statement. I wonder what you think about prostitutes. That's what you think? I use the wonder thing, John. You can't be mad at me.
I know. No, I'm not.
You can't be mad. Some of them parents.
I'm concerned, but I'm not.
Sounds like you don't ever want Alex to be there when you're doing a children's sermon. I'm just saying.
Alex is like, I got questions.
Yeah, I wonder.
Well, and this is a springboard on that, and this is not picking on Alex. But when you said I should. No, but because I don't believe my statement, what I'm going to make, connects with Alex. But I think like Paul says, that we're all gifted in many different ways. There are people that aren't gifted on doing children's sermons. It's I think it can be taught, but I also think that there are people in the congregation that are really good at it and that connect with kids, and so and just because someone volunteers to do it, sometimes we're so desperate for volunteers that it's like, oh, you want to do children's sermons? Well, what we actually need is, I hate that word actually, but what we it's like I'm mansplaining someone. Well, actually, anyway, but to go, what, where I think your gifts would really be used is this.
For sure.
So anyway, but yeah. All right, squirrels back in row.
No, it's great.
Yeah,
that's great.
So obviously we talked about pretty macro, like some of our things that we want. We want obviously children to feel welcome and seen. We want them to have comfort. Is there any of those musts or even some must nots that you want someone to think about the next time that they look at a text? Even knowing that the next text they'll hear after this will be, I think that's the last Sunday in July, which is, I think, the treasures, storing up treasures in the field. It's the parable of the treasures in the field. What's something that we can think about, and we don't have to go into that one if you don't want to, but just give me 3 points of try this, this, and this. I think your children's sermons will get a little better.
Oh, wow. Okay. 3 points. Since I don't do a 3-point sermon, this will be interesting. No. First is connecting it to grace. And one way, and sometimes that's a stretch. Sometimes, but so that's what I first look for. I look for, where can I connect it? Where can grace? Where can the love of God connect in this way? Two, I stay away from morality. I stay away from the morality children's sermons, that of the and this could be, you could get into, I could get into the weeds, and there's probably some, but it's it's grace, 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 grace. I actually have a Dan Erlander tattoo on my hand, on my arm, that's in the back of it's from the back of Baptized We Live, and it's the little thing that says grace, 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 and it's yeah. So, because it's all, I mean, um, the world is, it's hard enough for adults and it's hard enough for kids, and so to have a place where they experience that they are loved, period. So finding that, the text, and then when I led a children's sermon workshop at the extravaganza, one of the points I put out is, don't be afraid to step outside the text. And you can still tie it in with the bigger sermon, but stepping outside of the text, meaning that you've got this text and you're looking at it and you're like, I have no idea how I'm going to do a children's sermon for this, but we're in the green season. So, hey, let's talk. So a lot of times I talk about, like, we're detectives, and we notice things that have changed around us. So what are some of the things that might have changed in the sanctuary or in worship? And it's like, and so you notice green. What does the color green? What does green remind you of anything? And talk about growth, and these are these things that we using, or one of my fallback children's sermons is the baptismal font, and teaching the kids about making the sign of the cross, and remembering our baptisms, where it's like, it meant, in our tradition we baptize infants mostly, and so we don't remember the actual baptism, but we can remember the stories about our baptism. And so to talk and to gather around the font and play in the water, and so yeah. I mean, I have my favorite children's sermons that I've done. I mean, my Epiphany children's sermon, I have a star puppet, and I do this every Epiphany. But I have a star puppet, and you can cut out of a piece of cardboard a star, and we do a star tour. And so we walk around where we're going to find Jesus in the sanctuary. And so we go to the pulpit and talk about here we hear the word, here we hear from the Bible story, and that, and then we go to the altar, and we at the table where we find Jesus in the meal here, and it's, and I'll throw out something like, and I don't know how it works. I just know Jesus meets us here. There's the sense where, and then we go to the baptismal font, and then the last place is we follow the star, and I always go like, we're walking, and we get to the center of the congregation, and then I stop, and I go, and there's another place we find Jesus, and it's here in this place among all of these people, and with you as well. This is where we find Jesus, and so again, that, yeah, using everybody, use not using involving everybody. That's the right word. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, so grace, grace, grace. Wonder questions. I don't no scripts, because they just don't work. You can write down a beautiful script, and then it's just, might as well just throw it out the window. Now I say that because I preach from an outline. I preach from a mind map. If someone is comfortable with the script, what I would say is, you write a script so it gives you a direction to go, and then just throw the script away. So you're left with a springboard, but you've written it, and so you have a general idea of where you want to go, and then just get rid of it. So it's, yeah.
I thought you were going to give us permission there to use a script, and then you still threw it out. So that was good.
No, yeah. I mean, you have permission to do whatever you want. I just don't think they work well.
John's like, I wonder how bad your sermon is going to be when you use the script.
No judgments.
And besides, the kids will look like, why are you reading off that paper?
Yeah.
What is that paper?
You probably have the
Don't
answer
get
on it, so just
distracted by the
tell me
paper.
the answer.
Yeah, can I get that paper? You must have. I mean, I remember at LBI, Lutheran Bible Institute, when Professor Stein, Pastor Stein, had his Bible, which had all kinds of notes in it. I mean, we were in college, and we were like, if we could get hold of that Bible, we would know it all. You know?
Right. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
I don't think it works
Mhm.
that way, but yeah.
No, and I think, the last thing I wonder is, like, how do you wrap up, as we kind of wrap our time? How do you wrap up? And, I always end with a prayer. And
Yep.
my prayer usually has one line in it at the end, and it's always, help us to love others like you loved us first. And, we do repeat after me, and the congregation just joins in. And then amen. And then I give them candy. That's also one of my.
Okay.
That's the one that people go, you shouldn't be giving them candy. And I go,
Yeah.
I think we're doing a little bit of an ordo, gather, word, and meal. So I think it's just me showing them a mini church. But yeah, I mean, how do you kind of wrap, or what's the important piece to instead of saying, okay, well, you can go back to your seats now, which again, I've heard and seen where the child is just like,
wait,
oh,
no.
now?
Yeah. So since when during summer Sunday school is out, they don't meet during the summer, so it changes a little bit. But during the school year, during Sunday school, I have a prayer, and I always say my prayer that remember that you love everyone. You let us show everyone the love that you show us, and that way, and then I say, and then then we head off to Sunday school, because the Sunday school teachers will get up, and we have it's a one classroom Sunday school, so two teachers take it off, and then when we don't have Sunday school, we pray, and then as they head back to the pews, we enter. We have them rise, and we have everyone stand for the song, for the opening hymn. When I first got there, they used to give candy out, but I stopped that right away. I know, but it's one of those things because what it was used in the past. But Alex, it's interesting because I had not tied it to the table. I had not tied it to the sense of gift and things like that. So you have a
Don't
reason.
listen to him.
Yeah, I know. But you have a reason. You have a reason for it. I don't know if I completely buy it, but anyways, did I say that out loud? Anyway, yeah. Being it's a podcast and they can't see your face, I love that. Anyway, so but it had been used in the past as bribery to get the kids up, to get the kids up there, and so it's that sense where it's like here's here, if you come up, then you'll be given this. And so it's like I have a couple of kids that won't come up, that don't because they're in front of everybody, and that's okay. And so that's one. And so when there's a kid back there, that's when I again it's to the entire congregation. So I have found when they have a kid that isn't comfortable coming up, that you can tell that I will make eye contact as we're talking, because they'll lean over a little bit, and they're still watching, they're still paying attention, but they're at that age where it's like, I'm not going to leave my mom or dad's side, because that's scary. Yeah. So
now you touched upon something. What time in the service is a children's sermon? I'm not familiar.
Yeah. So there's two places. So for us, it's like right at the very beginning after confession and forgiveness, and right before our opening hymn. So, and because I want them to take part in that corporate confession. Even hearing those words, where I think it's important for them to hear that here's this body that says, we've messed up. We've messed up, and we're loved, and we're forgiven. And then they come up for the children's sermon. And then from there they'll head out. If Sunday school isn't there, then we'll have I have it right before the gospel reading. So we'll do we have we'll have the three readings, because we always do the psalm. So and then the children will come up. We'll do that, and then as they go back to the pews, everyone stands for the gospel acclamation. So and that's a sense where I like that movement, because as the kids are moving back into the pews, everyone else is standing up. So it's less that they're a spectacle as they so
okay. Thank you.
You have a spiritual practice of writing haikus. I wonder if you would wrap us with your haiku.
Sure. This, and sometimes, so I have Sometimes I do a haiku in the key of 3, which is 3 haikus tied together. But this is a haiku in the key of 2. So it's one way that I can stretch the haikus a little bit, but it's 2 haikus that are tied together. And this is for today. And a lot of times when I'll do a haiku, it's based on what the devotion or this book I'm reading, and I'm reading Rachel Held Evans' newest collection that her husband and that pieced together. And so, so this is the haiku. All of this gets hard. Quote, look at me and please like me. Some grace required. Some means a lot. So much grace overflowing, embracing us all.
Awesome. John Stevens, thank you so much. DollarStoreKidSermons.com will find you all the tools you need to do the children's sermon the right way. And also, if you're in the interest of getting some coffee beans, you're also a coffee bean roaster. So check out Blessed Beans. But yeah, John, you're a man of many talents, and thanks for sharing some of those talents with us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Thanks for asking. So get to hang out with the cool kids. Yeah.
All right, friends, before we go, here's a few quick announcements and reminders. First of all, if you aren't planning yet, you need to start planning because the ELCA Youth Gathering is coming up in the summer of 2027. And I was just looking online today, and they have releasing templates of presentations and all kinds of resources to get you started. They have already set schedules for webinars to get you ready as an adult leader. So I put all those on my calendar. So check that out. I don't have the link, but just search ELCA Youth Gathering 2027. Then a reminder connected to that first announcement. Because the gathering is happening in 2027, the next extravaganza, which is our big continuing ed event, is going to be in Minneapolis, the same city as the gathering, January 22nd to the 25th. So stay tuned. Registration opens at some point this fall. And then a few other things. Martin's List has been refreshed. Go take a look, see what's happening in there at that site. It's a place you can look for resources to support you in the work that you're doing. And this is the work of friends and colleagues. So it's a great resource. And it's available to all of our Plus level members for free. And thank you to all of you who are members of the network. Your membership makes possible Third Tuesday Conversation. That would be our jam. Oasis, Connect Journal, Formation Co-op, Martin's List, Extravaganza, and much more. If you're not a Plus level network member, we encourage you to join. Our memberships are what make all of this possible. And we're grateful to be a community that cares for this important ministry. Thank you so much for listening. New podcasts will be released on the third Tuesday of every month, and be sure to like and subscribe so you receive them as they come out. And of course, share them with your friends and enemies. And finally, thanks to Paul Amlin, the 3TC producer, for all of his work. We love you, Paul. He has to deal with us and edit us.
So much. Paul.
And lastly, have a great week, friends, and look for our next episode being released on the third Tuesday. This is Jessica saying over and out.
This is Alex LaChapelle saying see you later.
And Veronica Brito saying love you, and we'll see you soon.